Hi, my name is Peter Choi, and today I'll be discussing artist and photographist Ansel Adams. He was born February 20th of 1902, and he was born in San Francisco. Um, at an early age, he was a naturally shy kid. He had a hard time getting along with with kids around his age. And at that time as well, there were lots of earthquakes in San Francisco. So he was left with a disfigured nose, and this, you know, added on to him being more shy. And his family also went through a financial collapse, which they were never able to recover from. But at 12, he was gifted his first camera from his family. He was gifted the Kodak #1 box. And with this, he hiked, climbed, and would eventually fall in love with photography, and more so even nature. Um, and with this would boost his confidence and his self-esteem, which allowed him to, further pursue a career of photography in his future. And in his own words, he would say that his life was colored and modeled by the great earth gesture. And Yosemite would be the first significant place or playground for him in which he could, climb, hike, and take photographs of the landscape. And it would be a significant spot for him because he would continuously take photos in Yosemite till the day he died. And in 1919, he would join the Sierra Club, which is an environmental organization group. Sorry about that. And he would take, and he would, be able to spend more time in Yosemite taking landscapes and group pictures, and with this promote environmental issues. And if you look at his pictures, they are all black and white, and of course in landscape, but they are very intense. They are very well thought out, and they feel very grand, like as if you're almost there yourself. And this is because, well, he first created Group F-76 along with artist William Van Dyke, but they will push the idea of pure photography. And this will be classified as sharply focused and very carefully framed photos. And they wanted to capture scenes through the lens of the Western's eye or the Western's point of view. And this would be a strong contrast to the very popular pictorialists in the early 20th century, where they would intentionally manipulate the photos. So it would be a different product from what was essentially what initially was captured. So Group F-76, pure photography, wanted to be more concrete with what they were portraying. And he was also credited for the zone system, which essentially is finding the optimal film exposure and development through a deep understanding of tone ranges. And he never took credit for it, but people do credit him for it. And this is a branch for sensitorimetry, which is essentially a science for light. And you could see this and this was earlier in the 20th century as well too. In 1940, Ansel Adams would have, which is labeled as the biggest show in the West. It's called A Pagan of Photography, and to this day, millions have attended to see his photographs. And later on, in 1941, he would actually teach military photographers on how to frame and capture angles of scenes and stuff like that. And considering World War II happened just a few years after it was put to good use. And then in 1952, he will also found the Aperture magazines, and this magazine series still exists today. And it's based out of New York, I believe. And it was a serious magazine where they wanted to promote new artists and new techniques that photographers were developing and coming up with. And later in his life, he would have shows at the MoMA, and in 1972, would be commissioned by President Carter to actually take the first photograph portrait of the president. And this is actually in color, so yeah, you can see that you know, he was evolving with his age. And also, the U.S. Department of Interiors would contact him to take photos of national parks throughout the U.S. So with this, he would capture scenery once again and promote environmental issues with it. In very intense black and white photos, I must say. He would climb and even risk his life to get to some peaks to take these really dynamic photographs, which is just naturally dynamic because it's just a grand scenery. And it would lead to him expanding and promoting national parks. And in 1980, he would be awarded the Medal of Freedom by the president. And throughout most of his life, he was poor, but he had multiple shows, and he was very recognized as a photographer and artist. And he would eventually die, not soon, very soon after that, in April 22 of 1984 at Monterey, California. So his life work is mostly based in the West and in landscapes, but he did have periods of time where he worked in New York and throughout the country, and even for the president as well. So although he is known as an environmentalist photographer or artist, and he would promote these environmental issues, he would still be open to ideas from the president, obviously. But yeah, so that's the brief description of Ansel Adams, and thank you for watching.